3 FM. My name is Esther Nwachukwu, and these are the top stories. APC chieftain claims living conditions of Nigerians getting worse under Tinubu. DG Adeyanju discloses Presidential Tribunal may not invalidate Peter Obi and Vice President Shetima for double nomination. Ndume declares senators may take drastic action against Akpabio over utterances. Now, a former National Vice Chairman, Northwest of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Dr. Salihu Lukman, has lamented that the living conditions of Nigerians are getting worse, while poverty has increased beyond any rational expectations under President Bola Tinubu. Lukman, in a statement today titled Disturbing Signals, Open Letter to President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, described most of the decisions taken by the president since he assumed office as disturbing. He decried the management of policy initiatives, especially as it regards the issue of exchange rates. The party chieftain added that the emergence of the immediate past governor of Kano State as the national chairman of the party, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, as national chairman of the APC, sent a disturbing signal that President Bola Tinubu was weakly committed to fighting corruption. Lukman also described the ministerial nominees of Tinubu as a complete disappointment. He said that the president has dashed the hope of Nigerians with the caliber of people he appointed as ministers. Now, I had a telephone conversation earlier with Barrister Fred Nzako. He is an economic analyst, a political enthusiast, and a social affairs commentator. And the interview was based on the current economic situation in the country, especially as regards the fact that there is a tendency that there may be a fuel increment further from 670 naira per litre to 600 to 720 naira per litre due to the further weakening of the naira. Let's take a listen to him. A particular APC chieftain, right, has complained recently of the multi-dimensional state of poverty that Nigerians are currently experiencing. In fact, he said that some persons thought that the decisions around the exchange rate will be an integral part of the broader economic policy of the government, but it appears that an isolated decision has been taken to float the naira without any clear economic policy. Do you think, with what is currently at play, that is the truth? What he's saying is the truth? That's the former National Vice Chairman, Northwest of the All Progressives Congress, Dr. Salihu Lukman. I need your take on his reaction to the current state of the Nigerian economy, especially as the naira has drastically weakened to the dollar.
Well, it is obvious that we are having very big challenge with managing the naira, and the challenge cannot end until all the factors, economic factors that will give naira the required strength are put in place. And what are these factors? Number one, increase domestic productivity. We cannot stop talking about our domestic productivity. Number two, and most importantly, refining capacity of Nigeria. The largest chunk of our foreign exchange is consumed on account of importation of petroleum products. I agree that most of the goods we consume in Nigeria are imported, but the one that hurts the economy the most is importation of energy by way of fossil fuel, all manner of petroleum products, diesel,
Barrister Fred, I actually get you, Barrister, but the problem now is, what is the immediate solution? Because the naira is on a downward swing, combined with the rising cost of transport as a result of the withdrawal of subsidy. The inflationary pressure on the economy is very high, and this results to worse living conditions. At this rate, poverty incidence will be so high beyond any rational expectation. So what should the president do now? That's the question.
The immediate solution will require diligence. Governments will form an economic oligopoly, in which case a few people will be given authority, a few organizations will be given authority to import petroleum products at a reasonable rate, not at the current exchange rate that is floated. The floating of the naira will continue to hurt the system, because you cannot float a currency that is not production based. You float the currency that is import in an economy that is import dependent. In Naira will continue to be bastardized. We are gradually chasing Zimbabwe and other bastardized economies. So, in order to avoid the situation, we must take urgent steps. It may sound like it is a subsidy on the other side, but the steps must be taken. Government must give foreign exchange to a few importers of petroleum products at rate that is affordable so that these products will come in. But at the end, the other flip side to it will be when the products come in, at what rate will they be sold? And are we going to go back to the season and the era of taking away these products that are already subsidized? Because the very moment you subsidize the currency, that is an indirect financial subsidy. So it is a major problem that if we don't kill the corruption in the system, it will continue to haunt us. There is no immediate stopgap except we enhance our productivity.
Barrister, the current situation at the moment now has yielded to few queues resurfacing in some filling stations across the states, especially Lagos. I don't know about other states for now, but for Lagos, because IPMAN raised an alarm, or rather declared last week, that due to the weakening of the Naira, the consistent weakening of the Naira, it has actually, would I say, discouraged importation. And those who are importing have to buy according to the exchange rate, which is quite high, and they need to reflect their profit. So there is a tendency that premium motor spirit is likely to increase to 720 naira per litre. We haven't seen any subsidy palliative or yet, as the president mentioned, during his broadcast. Even the second time he made a national broadcast, we haven't seen anything yet. But Mr. Fred Nzako, at this rate, currently, what should the common man do as briefly as possible? What should the common man do?
Well, I honestly sympathize with our situation. It's a very terrible one. The palliative that we expect cannot even do any meaningful, make any meaningful impact in the lives of the people. It cannot, because the population is increasing, and where is the fund? Now the government is already owing large chunk of money to foreign creditors, and in any rate, these debts have further weakened the Naira. We don't have the dollar to show up the value of the Naira. We don't. So what do you say the poor man to do? We continue to suffer and continue to suffer, and to what end? The major thing that government must do is to find a way to enhance domestic refining. It must happen. Find a way to enhance domestic refining and then give palliative to the people as much as they can. Open up the border so that there will be inflow of foodstuffs from all over the place, because Nigerians cannot even see as we speak. And ensure that we plug leakages. We cannot stop saying this. And this one, the government is even flexing also that we want to go and restore democracy in Niger. All those things inflame the already situation in our economy. It is some people who want to even come in and are afraid that Nigeria may get involved in war. So we must ensure that there is stability of thought, stability of the system, and ensure that at least people get opportunity to be productive. The challenge is so much, and government doesn't seem to have its hold on the problems in order to bring solution. All the money saved by the removal of subsidy, we are not seeing the net effect. The government will need to plow such funds, especially into feeding our population. And we need to enhance our goodwill and open our borders for assistance. We need to declare state of emergency in Nigeria because it has nothing to that. We need to declare state of emergency and call for foreign help. So that countries that will assist us will come and assist us. We don't have natural disasters, but we have hunger disaster. We have governance disaster. We have environment disaster. And
And that was an interview I had earlier with Barrister Fred Nzako, whom we will still be speaking with on other issues that we'll be contending with on the World News at 6. Now, Deji Adeyanju, a political activist, on Monday, which is today, hinted that the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal may not invalidate the nomination of Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi. This was as Adeyanju said the tribunal might not do the same with Vice President Kashim Shettima for double nomination. Tweeting, he said the tribunal could invalidate President Bola Tinubu's candidacy for double nomination. According to Adeyanju, he says, "We'll be extremely surprised if the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal does not invalidate the nomination of Peter Obi by Labour Party in line with the provisions of EA on membership register. The double nomination of Shettima is also enough to invalidate Tinubu's candidacy." You'll recall that in May, the Supreme Court had struck out a suit seeking to disqualify Tinubu and Shettima due to alleged double nomination. Now, the People's Democratic Party brought the suit before the Apex Court, stressing that Shettima had a double nomination as senatorial candidate for Borno Central Senatorial District and vice presidential candidate under the All Progressives Congress. Barrister Fred Nzako, this time around, I'm having the interview with you live, not as we had earlier. Good evening and welcome to the World News at 6.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening to our dear listeners.
Thank you very much, Barrister. So apparently, as you do know, that Nigerians are waiting with bated interest, waiting for the tribunal to eventually give its ruling on the, the petitions from the Labour Party and the PDP contradicting or rather challenging the victory of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, a lot of individuals or analysts who have been following the political space have been giving their own quota on what they think concerning the issues that were written down by each of these political parties to invalidate Tinubu's win. But is it, you do recall that the Supreme Court actually gave a ruling which turned down what the People's Democratic Party tendered to it in the first instance concerning the double nomination of Kashim Shettima. The same thing was also tendered at the Election Petition Tribunal. Do you think that is going to have any substance whatsoever, since the Apex Court already turned that down initially?
Well, under the doctrine of res judicata, that means there must be an end to litigation. If Supreme Court has made a judgment or given a decision on a particular matter, it is expected that such a matter should be rested, because there must be an end to such a matter. On the issue of double nomination, not upheld the petition of the other side, I do not think that it will be a very strongly litigated matter by the tribunal, because under the doctrine of precedence, the tribunal, being the court lower, is a court of appeal lower than the Supreme Court, it must address itself by the judgment of the Supreme Court. Even if not so motu, but can be brought to the attention by the lawyers handling the matters. So I think that matter should be rested the way Supreme Court has rested it, and then other issues that are germane to the petitions of the petitioners will now be looked into by the Petition Election Tribunal.
All right, Barrister Fred, here is also another notion that I actually want you within your legal purview to help explain further. Okay, so he made a statement which I need a legal clarification on. He says, "It will be extremely surprising if the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal does not invalidate the nomination of Peter Obi by Labour Party in line with the provisions of the EA," maybe it's the form EA on membership register for Peter Obi. And of course, he now tied it along with the double nomination situation with Shettima. What does that actually mean? What does he mean by he will not be surprised if the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal does not invalidate the nomination of Peter Obi? Can you help explain what he means by that statement?
It's a mere expression of personal wish, which does not and may not translate to judgment of the tribunal. If he will not be surprised, by the time the tribunal gives his judgment, whether he is surprised or not, will go to no issue, because for every decision or opinion or judgment of the court, it must be supported by evidence. Available evidence must also be supported by previous judgment of courts, which of course will be a guide to whatever that the petition tribunal, the petition court will do. So any fellow who is expressing surprise by the judgment of the petition court should address himself to the issues at stake. So I think it is mere a personal opinion and a personal wish. That does not mean that the tribunal will give its judgment based on the expressed opinion of an individual, but rather will address itself, advise itself based on what the concrete issues before the tribunals.
All right, so you do recall this particular incident that transpired last week. I think that was precisely last week, Monday, where the Senate broke for its annual break. Akpabio had informed his colleagues that money had been delivered to enjoy their vacation. Now, let me read out what he said. He said that a token has been delivered to our various accounts by the clerk of the National Assembly to enable us all to enjoy our holidays. Now, after that particular utterance by the Senate President, Nigerians criticized the senators for slumming it off the country's coffers in response to Akpabio's remark and called for their resignation. Now, some legislators were obliged to concede that the amount provided to them as a leave allowance was merely 2 million naira and not some ludicrously high sum as had been previously claimed due to the controversy. Now, Barrister Fred, this is what I want you to hear. Some legislators were obliged to concede that the amount provided to them as a leave allowance was merely 2 million naira. That's the phrase. It was capped in merely 2 million naira and not some ludicrously high sum as had previously been claimed due to the controversy. So Senator Indume cited Akpabio's public disclosure as a cause of the unjustified attacks on the lawmakers in a recent interview with the BBC Hausa service. So he said any employee going on leave has a right to a leave grant, as is well known. He stated that was the payment we got and it's nothing out of the ordinary or noteworthy. He said again that 2 million naira was distributed to every senator due to the fact that he, Akpabio, is the root of this problem. I am saying this with a heavy heart. Now, he continued to say that Akpabio gave the idea that they were given anything exceptional or a large sum of money. What's the big issue if I receive a senator's allowance of 2 million naira? In other words, he's saying that it is 2 million naira that each of these senators receive for their leave allowance, and so it is not a big deal. It is not a big amount of money as Nigerians were speculating, and that Akpabio, for talking loosely at the Senate at the time, is the root cause of the problem. That is the attacks that the senators have been receiving since then. Do you think that this senator's remark is quite insensitive for him not understanding the reason why Nigerians attacked them when Senator Godswill Akpabio made that statement?
I think the major issue is handling the emotional intelligence of the citizenry. Nigerians are suffering. The majority of Nigerian people are suffering. Suffering in the midst of plenty, in the midst of abundant resources. And a lot of them do not understand why the suffering will continue even when we are not at war. And any act that seems to show lack of passion, lack of feeling, emotional feeling for the people, will be criticized by the people as being insensitive. In the midst of suffering of the masses, the senators seem to be living large. They have their budget. Of course, you record the budget of the National Assembly was moved to 320 billion in the current appropriation year, up from 175 billion to be in times past. But as our budget estimate increased multiple folds, their own appropriation estimate also increased. And it is also expected that they will send some pay based on what is provided in the Appropriation Act. So what Nigerians don't want is robbing their affluence across their eye if the rest of Nigerians don't matter. Ordinary, the statement by Ababio wouldn't have raised any doubt. But because there is much hunger in the land, the people don't want to hear that their legislators who are supposed to be their leaders are enjoying while the rest of them are suffering. So let us say it is a statement of displacement of aggression of the people. They have displaced their economic buyer in an aggressive manner against the legislators who ordinarily entitled to the allowances that they receive. And if our people don't want them to receive so, let us say so and let us determine the kind of legislators that we want. Long as the current Nigerian constitution is operational, what they have received is what was appropriated for them. If they go outside the appropriation, then the view aside will be justifiable. But like I said, it is a matter of displacement of aggression based on lack of emotional intelligence, based on the fact that the people feel the legislators are not passionate and sensitive to their suffering as of today. It has become a case of against us. Now there's that the statement of the people of the legislator from the people.
All right.
The leaders are now distant from the people, and the people now see it as enemies of their welfare. And I can tell you that once a country gets down to that level, the center cannot hold anymore.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Fred Nzako, for your input on the World News at 12. Like you rightly said, it is quite unfortunate the current quagmire that Nigerians are currently facing. It almost feels like because Nigerians are not saying anything, because they're not reacting, so the government keeps pummeling and pummeling. Let's hope that the decision that is meant to be disclosed by the Election Petition Tribunal is done as quick as possible. Possibly the president may be able to understand the way he wants to go with the economic trajectory, because as it stands now, it's almost impossible, literally impossible, for the common man to survive the current economic reality of the nation. Once again, Barrister Fred Nzako, thank you for your input on the World News at 6.
Many thanks.
Now, another for us to wrap up the world news. Here again at the top stories, you heard that APC chieftain claims living conditions of Nigerians getting worse under Tinubu. Adeyanju discloses presidential tribunal may not invalidate Peter Obi and Vice President Shitima for double nomination. Indumi declares senators may take drastic action against Akpabio over